This video is brought to you by Sailrite. Visit Sailrite.com for all your project supplies, tools, and instructions. Keep sheets, halyards, and other ropes organized with a vinyl mesh and Sunbrella sheet bag. Sheet bags are great for organization and allow water to drain through. A Phifertex mesh front pocket with elastic top keeps them secure. The backing fabric is a durable Sunbrella in the color of your choice. Sailrite sheet bag kits include adhesive-backed YKK SNAD fasteners for a no-drill snap stud. Sheet bag kits come with all the fabric, binding, thread, and snap components to make up 4 bags. Let's get started and show you how to make sheet bags using the Sailrite sheet bag kit. Cindy, a professional seamstress with Sailrite, will show us how it's done. Cindy's using a square here with a yardstick to straighten the one edge of the Sunbrella marine grade fabric.
Okay, I'm going to cut my pieces 18 by 21, and I can get 4 of them out of this yard of Sunbrella.
Here we're using a soapstone pencil to mark on the Sunbrella marine grade fabric.
And I'm going to lay the ruler underneath my line so that I can cut this with a hot knife.
A hot knife will help seal the edges, but it's not necessary since the edges will be finished with a binding tape. However, using a hot knife can help keep the stitch, which secures the binding in a later step, from easily pulling out from the fabric's edge, because that stitch will be very close to the raw edge of the fabric. Now that our Sunbrella is cut to size, it's time to concentrate on the vinyl mesh called Phifertex.
I'm going to cut the Phifertex at 24 by 18, and then I'm going to cut it down into a trapezoid to make the bag on the front of our sheet bag.
Cindy straightened one edge and now marks on the fabric the measurements she just mentioned. She's doing this with a pencil. There is no need to cut Phifertex with a hot knife. You can simply cut it with scissors. It will not unravel.
We're going to cut the Phifertex pieces 3 inches narrower just at the bottom. So I'm going to mark 1.5 inches in and angle it from the top width down to the 1.5 inches and cut this section off to make our trapezoid.
The rectangle was 24 inches by 18 inches. Now it's 24 inches at the top, 21 inches at the bottom, and 18 inches high. Coming up next, we'll create a hem along the top edge of the Sunbrella and also a hem or a sleeve in the mesh fabric.
Now to make the top hem in this along the 21-inch edge, I'm going to turn down 3/8 of an inch and then 3/4 of an inch.
Cindy will simply crease the fabric at this location. She's going to use the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler to crease the fabric so it has a memory there and will fold easily when she takes it to the sewing machine to sew it. And now she folds again to make a 3/4 inch hem along the top. She'll crease it again with the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler. If you don't have that, you can use another hard object. Even the handle of your scissors will work to help crease the fabric.
And the Phifertex on the wide part of the Phifertex, I'm going to turn under 3/8 of an inch at the top and press it down. And this one I'll take over to the machine and stitch it and then turn it down again at 1 3/4. And that forms the pocket or the casing for the elastic.
Now that the Sunbrella and the Phifertex mesh fabric have been creased, we can take them to the sewing machine and sew them. We're going to first start with the Sunbrella fabric.
I'm going to use the longest stitch length and stitch right up along this folded edge.
We're using the world's best portable walking foot sewing machine, the Sailrite UltraFeed. This is the LSC. It is a straight stitch and zigzag sewing machine. Next up, we'll sew the Phifertex mesh. It's only been folded once to 3/8 inch. After we secure this hem in place, we'll take it back and fold it to 1 3/4 inch and then sew again, creating a sleeve.
And now I can turn down the 1 3/4 inches.
Phifertex creases fairly well, so again we'll use the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler Or if you don't have that, you can use something else to crease the edge of the fabric so it has a memory there. When we take it to the sewing machine, it'll fold nicely right there. At the beginning of your stitch and end of your stitch, especially for this sleeve, it's a good idea to reverse to lock the stitch in place. Then when you come to the end of your stitch, be sure to do the same.
I'm going to trim off this little edge right here so that it lets the binding go right up close to the edge of the Phifertex when I put that on. Okay, I've lined up the two top edges where I want them to end up so that it's even across here. And I have a little bit of Sunbrella sticking out down here. And I do want these bottom edges also to be even. So I'm just going to put a couple pins in to secure it, hold it in place, and keep everything up here where I want it to be.
The bottom edge should be flush. The top edge should be a little bit off as shown here. It's not uncommon to have to do some trimming to make it perfectly flush.
Now the next step is to put the elastic in the casing at the top.
Before we can sew these two assemblies together, we need to install the elastic.
And I'm going to cut the elastic for the casing in the top, and I want to cut it at 24 inches and mark it at 14 inches.
Once the elastic's cut to 24 inches and marked at 14 inches, push the elastic into the sleeve. You can use a yardstick if it's difficult to push through the sleeve.
Okay, I slid the elastic in, and here's my 14-inch mark right underneath there. So I'm going to pin this in place, and then I'm going to stitch across here and secure that end of the elastic. And then I'm going to pull this out so that this mark ends up over here and stitch that down.
To secure the elastic well, be sure to sew several times, forward and reverse at least twice to secure the elastic in the sleeve at that end. Now she'll pull out about 10 inches of the elastic. It's marked 14 inches from the edge we just sewed down. So 10 inches of elastic is pulled till the line is flush with the edge of the mesh, and there too it is sewn down with several rows of straight stitches, reversing a few times.
And I can trim this excess elastic off.
Now those two assemblies can be sewn together. We'll do that before we sew on the binding.
I'm going to pin the Phifertex to the Sunbrella, and I want this is the back side of the Phifertex. I want that down on the front side of the Sunbrella with the hem on the back side there. So I'm going to match up the bottom corners first, and then put a few pins all the way around and stitch the side, the bottom, and up the other side.
The bottom edge of the Phifertex and the Sunbrella should be flush, and the two sides should also be flush. Since there's elastic in the sleeve, it will want to wrinkle up, and the Phifertex mesh fabric is not exactly the same size as the Sunbrella underneath. So, Cindy has decided to pin the assemblies together so all edges are flush. Then, after she's happy, she'll take it to the sewing machine and sew the two assemblies together. Using a long straight stitch, we'll sew roughly an 1/8 inch inside the edge. We're going to be sure to do some reversing here at the beginning to secure this edge down very well and to lock our stitch in place. We will also be sewing a binding around the perimeter, so that too will help secure the two assemblies together. When the corner is reached, the needle is buried at the corner where she wants to take a turn, the presser foot lifted, then lowered, then she'll continue to sew around the corner. Skipping ahead here, we come to the end, the other side, and here we'll do some reversing as well.
Now the next step is to round out my bottom corners. So I'm going to measure up 2 inches and over 2 inches and make a mark. And then you can use anything that's round and make that curve from your 2 inches over to your 2 inches. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch inside that pencil line and trim this off.
Now we'll sew about an 1/8 inch inside that line we just struck down. We'll do that on this corner and the opposite bottom corner. Cut the edge off with scissors or a hot knife. Cut an 1/8 inch away from that stitch. Up next, we need to sew the binding. First, we're going to use a binder attachment available from Sailrite. Then we'll do it without.
Okay, I'm going to use the 1-inch swing away binder to apply the binding around the 3 edges of this and finish it off.
This 1-inch acrylic bias binding that comes in the kit is fed into the binder attachment. This is a 1-inch straight angle binder. It's a swing away. Here at the top edge is where our sleeve is, and the elastic's inside the sleeve, so there's a little bit of bulk there. Do some reversing here at the beginning to lock the stitch in place. All that's required is that you keep the assembly pushed into the mouth of the binder. You do not have to worry about how the binding is being folded. The binder attachment will fold it for you automatically, and it will keep that stitch perfectly along the edge of the binding, so it's nice and straight. You can easily sew outside turns here at this bottom corner just by being sure the fabric is pushed into the mouth of the binder, as you see Cindy doing here. Go nice and slow there when you reach that position. And then continue to sew all the way around. When the opposite edge at the top is reached, do some reversing there as well. Go all the way past the sunbrella and reverse to lock that binding and stitch in place. We'll cut it first with scissors, but a hot knife should be used to keep the ends of the binding from unraveling.
I'm going to use the hot knife to trim off this edge right here and finish it and seal
We're
it.
using the Sailrite Edge hot knife. This is a very reasonably priced hot knife package that comes with the R-blade, the cutting foot, the hot knife, and a carrying case. If you don't have a binder attachment, we're going to show you how to do it by hand with your sewing machine.
If you don't have the 1-inch binder to attach to your machine, you can do this binding without. I'm going to fold it in half and press it with my ruler.
You can crease it with the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler or an iron. Just make sure it's not plugged in or on very low heat. Or you can use the edge of a table and crease it like this. This is faster.
And I'm going to wrap it around the edge of the fabric.
You must ensure that the assembly is pushed into the fold of the binding. You'll now want to sew a long straight stitch about a 1/4 inch inside the folded edge of the binding tape. That's the inner edge, not the outer edge. Because we're not using a binder attachment, we typically like to position the binding in front of the presser foot by about 6 or 8 inches, then sew up to that point and reposition it about 6 or 8 inches in front of the presser foot and continue that process. Here at the corner, go slowly. Few fabrics like to take a turn, but this is a gradual turn, and this is also a binding that is cut on the bias so that it does take the turn better than a straight cut binding would. We'll continue on around the bottom edge and the opposite side. To keep the ends of the binding from unraveling, use a hot knife and trim off the excess. The sheet bag kit will do 4 sheet bags. It comes with snaps for those bags, 3 per bag, and also an installation tool. We'll show you how to use that next.
Okay, I'm ready to put the snaps in these, and I'm going to put one on each end and one in the center. So I'm going to fold it in half and crease the center just with my fingers.
The kit does not come with a hole cutter. Here we're using the 1/8 inch hole cutter to place a hole in the center of the bag in that hem.
I want this cap of the snap to be on the front, so I turned this over, and I'm going to use this concave section of this tool. It has two sides.
If you do not have a hole cutter, you can use an awl or some other device to cut a hole in the fabric, but a hole must be cut to install this snap. A snap socket is placed on the barrel of the button. A hammer is used on the anvil, then to roll the end of the barrel over.
And that still has a little bit of slip in it, so I'm going to give it a couple more pounds.
It should be set in such a manner that when you grasp the socket and twist it, it does not turn easily. There, it's done perfectly. Using our 1/8 inch hole cutter, not included in the sheet bag kit, we will place holes right up close to the edge of the binding on both sides and install snaps there as well. Always be aware that the socket is on the back side and the top of the button is on the front side of the sheet bag before installing. There we go. All of our snaps are now installed.
For our installation, we'll be using the YKK SNADs. They're adhesive on the back side.
By using the YKK SNAD, we do not need to drill holes in the boat for the installation of a stud. These YKK SNADs hold very well, but when they need to be removed, they do not cause damage. We'll now take the YKK SNADs that come in the sheet bag kit to the boat and install 2 of our sheet bags. We'll show you how to do that next. First, the area where the SNAD needs to be installed needs to be cleaned thoroughly. We'll be using an alcohol prep pad. Don't have a prep pad? Use rubbing alcohol with a mixture of water, 50-50. Be sure the surface dries before applying the SNAD. We will snap all 3 of the SNADs onto our socket. And then we'll peel the backing off of one of the SNADs at one of the corners and position it carefully. Jim has decided to position the bag so that it rests on top of the cushion. That is his preference and not a requirement. Press firmly for several minutes, working all the way around the edges and in the center to secure the SNAD. Jim moves to the opposite corner, peels off the transfer paper, and then positions it carefully so that the bag is level and the top edge is nice and taut. He will apply constant pressure for a few minutes here, and then he'll position the center SNAD. For Jim's boat, he needed 2 sheet bags. They are now installed. It is wise to carefully unsnap the sheet bag. Notice Jim's using one hand to hold the SNAD in place so he doesn't lose its bond, and allow each of the SNADs to cure completely before using heavily. Typically, the best wait time is 72 hours. Our sheet bag is now ready to use. Just snaps in position. If the SNADs need to be removed later, it can be done with a plastic putty knife. Now that you know how to make one, if you haven't ordered one yet, you can order the sheet bag kit at Sailrite. Click the top link at the top right corner to get your sheet bag kit, which makes 4 of these bags. Coming up next is the materials list and tools that we use to build this sheet bag. To make ordering easy, all of the materials come with the sheet bag kit. The only thing you may need are a few tools which you may already own. Get your sheet bag kit today, available in your choice of Sunbrella marine grade fabric colors. It's your loyal patronage to Sailrite that makes these free videos available. Thanks for your loyal support. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.